Good morning, dear teacher, dear brothers, dear sisters, dear community. Welcome to our day of mindfulness. Today is Sunday, June 3rd, 2018, and we are in the Great Togetherness Meditation Hall at Blue Cliff Monastery. The rain has stopped, but this morning it rained quite a bit, and also last night. And so everything is very green, and I enjoy the rain a lot because I'm from Oregon, where it rains a lot, and it's very green. And so when it rains, it feels like home. And I know for some of our brothers and sisters who have seasonal allergies, they're also very happy when it rains. So all the pollens gets washed down. When we, after the end of the winter retreat, many of us in groups has been going out from the monastery to offer teachings. And I'd just like to share a little bit about what we've been doing for you. Right at the end of the winter, a group of brothers went to Miami, partly to get a break from the cold and the snow, but also to have a chance to offer 2 days of mindfulness, and also gathering with the local Sangha to spend time with them. And we both were very nourished, both the local lay Sangha members and the monastics. Then after that, a smaller group of us went to Australia to offer five retreats there during the 5-week stay. And then that was in April. And then in May, another group went, brothers and sisters went to Canada to offer more retreats there for 4 weeks. And then during that time, there was a smaller number of sisters who went to Baltimore to offer a retreat there. And then we have another group of brothers went on a hiking retreat. And so there were various activities outside of the monastery during the springtime. But at the same time, at home at the monastery, we also held weekends for Kuni Law students and professors. We also had, offer the practice to the students and professors at the DCCC, the Delaware County Community College, that came here every year. We also had a retreat for OI members. We had a Vesak celebration last weekend. And there's a number of other things that I might not remember to share. But it showed that how in the springtime, if you came here, there might not be many monastics here, and that's the reason why we went outside to offer teachings. And as summer arrives, we come back. So at the moment, most of us are back. There's still a few that are still out there visiting home, or we have a brother who's visiting Plum Village to attend the 21-day retreat there. And in 2 weeks, we will have a retreat for Wake Up for young people here. And there's already about 60 or 70 people sign up. So if you are a young person, or if you know someone in the age range of 18 to 35, then you can encourage them to sign up to come. The organizers already planned wonderful practices for them to enjoy. And I myself also had a chance to go out, and I went to Australia with a brother and a sister, and we met with the sisters from our center in Melbourne, and went with them to organize retreats in various cities. And then after that, we asked permission for an extra bonus week, and that is to visit Thailand, to visit our center there, and to visit our teacher. He's been residing there since December of 2016. And So we had a chance to be with him, though very shortly. See that his health is stable. He's being well taken care of by the young monastics. We got a chance to visit him a couple of times during our time there and spend many wonderful times drinking tea with the monks and the nuns there. There are about 100 monks and 100 nuns there, practicing happily together. And the median age is around 20 or 22, so they're very young. I've met some monks who are 16 or 17 and some nuns who are like 14. And they're all very bright, have bright smile on their face and enjoying the practice together. So the energy is very, 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 very nice. And I was fortunate to have a chance to be with them and to also to bring some of the energy back to our smaller Sangha here in New York. So today I like to pose a few questions for us to reflect. Some questions are for us monastics and some questions are for you. There's no homework at the end, so you don't need to worry. Just something for reflection. One question that many of us monastics have been asked, and myself included, is why did you become a monastic? Why did you become a monk, or why did you become a nun? And I think if you ask each one of us, we might have a different response, we might have a different answer. And maybe if you ask the same person at different times, you might get a different response or different answers. For me, I find that as I practice, the more I practice and being in the Sangha, the more reasons I could find as to why not only becoming but being or maintaining this life. And I remember sharing a couple of reasons that started me on the path, and one was I want to live a more simple life on this beautiful path. And then another reason is to do that in community, because you can also do that by yourself. But one of my reasons is I want to live in community. And I was very, very happy when I found this community, when I found the Plum Village community. Because I see that living in community, we share things, and therefore we save a lot of resources. If I were to live by myself, and I have done that, I use up a lot of resources. I own a car, I own an apartment, I own a TV, I have to purchase every material things that I think that I need and that I saw around me that people have. But living in a community, I don't have to waste so much resources. We share pretty much everything. In the community here, we have about 40 people or so, 40 plus, and we have 7 cars. If we were outside, we might have, especially if we live in America, we might have 40 cars, right? We need one, it's a need. And some might have even 2 cars for one person. We might need 40 houses or apartments to live in. It's already a lot here. We have about 14 buildings or something, but it feels like a lot already. And we share cooking, we share many different resources. We share one bank. And we have, among us, we have 6 or 7 cell phones. And that's an upgrade. I remember before when we first moved here, I think the monk has 2 phones, or 1, and the nuns has 1 or 2 phones. But we were able to upgrade because of the need for people to go out so much, and we need it mostly for GPS to find ways, especially into New York and to the city, to pick up people from the airport, or to go shopping, or to contact the local services. So if we were outside, we will need 40 phones. And I know some friends who have 2 phones or 3 phones, 1 for business and 1 for personal. That is not to say that having more is bad, having less is good. It's just that we feel that we don't need that many. And in essence, we save resources. And so that's one of the 2 of the few reasons that I share with friends who ask why I became a monk. And I found that being a monk gives me a chance to practice full time, because I want to lead a spiritual practice. And for me, the best way is to be in an environment where that is encouraged, where that is there is available, conditions available for that to manifest. And so. And this is a question that's from time to time I ask myself, and I also would like to pose it to you for reflection. And that is, maybe it's a 3-part question. The first part is, do you see a spiritual practice or a spiritual life as a part of your life? Or do you see your spiritual practice or spiritual life as a part from your life? Is it a part of or apart from? Or do you see your spiritual practice, do you see your spiritual life, the whole of your life? In other words, is your life your spiritual practice? Is your life an expression of your spiritual practice? So it's something for us to reflect, and we might have an answer yes to all 3 of them at different times, or just to one of them. Can you take a moment to reflect while we listen to one sound of the bell? I see in the audience we have 2 young people, 2 children. I don't know if you like to remain here or if you like to go outside to play. We have a Sister Tanlung, who is ready to take you out to play if you wish. Otherwise, if you want to stay, you're welcome also to stay and listen. It's up to you, or anytime you feel like getting up and go, it's okay. All right? And so these questions, there's no right or wrong. It's just for us to reflect and to see where we're at different times in our lives. For me, as I shared before, I chose to live my life as a spiritual life because I see that living in a community is easier because the environment is already here and is conducive to the practice of mindfulness, to spiritual practice. Concretely, we have a schedule, a daily schedule to follow to help keep us on track. And we have people living around us with the same aspiration, so we remind one another to go forward, to practice, to cultivate mindfulness and concentration. In Christian monasteries, the monastic, they practice, I think, 6 or 7 sessions a day, formal practicing sessions. And their lives daily is interspersed with work or doing other things, but their main activity is prayer. So they will go 6 or 7 times and come together and to practice praying. And I think in the Islamic tradition, I think people also pray like 5 times a day. In our monasteries, you know how many times a day we do formal spiritual practice? Those of you who've been here, you want to take a guess? Clarity? 2. Wow, that's much less, huh? It might be a trick question, Clarity. And I share this is not to compare whether more is good or less is bad or vice versa. It's just for us to contemplate. I did a tally yesterday of how many spiritual sessions, session here, which is called practice, we do per day. And I count up like 7. We have 2 sitting sessions. We have 3 meals a day. We have 1 walking session and 1 working session. Of course, this is not every day, but in general. So 7 sessions of spiritual practice, formal spiritual practice a day. Yeah, you might question, what do you mean meal time is practice? Meal time for us is also practice. That's why we call it eating meditation or mindful eating. We have mindful sitting in the morning and in the afternoon. We have mindful walking, mindful eating, mindful working. So at least if we don't do our spiritual practice at other times, at least we have 7 chances per day to immerse ourselves in a spiritual practice with a community. So that's enriching, I feel. And so if you're here, whether short term or long term, or just visiting for the day, please take advantage of that opportunity to practice. To grow your spiritual life, to grow the mindfulness seed in you, to grow concentration. As I mentioned, living in a community or come visiting a community and stay in short term, the environment is ready, is conducive for our practice. But if we take it for granted, if we don't see value in it, we will lose it. And we lose it when we start to focus on something else other than the practice. We don't let the practice take precedence. We start to search out. We have to start to look outside, look for something else, something might be more exciting, because if you just follow the schedule every day, day in and day out, it might become boring. And then the mind starts to wander, and that's when you lose the practice, that's when you lose the community, you lose an opportunity. So if we are determined to practice, to lead a spiritual life, to bring a spiritual dimension into our lives, then we have to make a commitment. Do we want the spiritual practice to be a part of our lives? We want it to be apart from, or do you want us to be the whole of our lives? So something for us to reflect. I have an analogy of driving a car home. Recently, a number of our brothers just got a driver license, and it's been a very fun experience for the whole Sangha, seeing how excited they were and how anxious they were to go to the driving test, and how elated they felt when they received a New York license, a driver license. And so somehow that got stuck in my mind. So when I was preparing for this talk, there's an image of driving came up. And so I use it as an analogy. So if you were in a car driving home, it might be, if you were commuting, it might take an hour or so, or even longer. And so while you're driving should be your priority, right? You should pay attention to driving so that you can get home safely. But if you let yourself taking driving for granted, if you get distracted, if you lose focus, whether talking on the phone or reaching to change the music station, or worse, texting, you might not get home safely. You might veer off the road. You might hit something. You might hit somebody. But if you stay focused on driving, then you have a better chance. You'll most likely be home safe. And in the spiritual life, it's similar. If you let the practice takes precedence, if you prioritize the practices first, then you don't get distracted. Or when and if you get distracted, you know how to get back right away. But if you don't let the practice be your priority, then something else will take over, and you lose the opportunity. So for those of us who are here for a long time, myself included, and those of us who are just visiting or just living here in a short period, I invite you to reflect on another question, and that is, why am I here? Why am I here? Listen to another sound of the bell. So I've been sharing about spiritual practice in the context of a community. What about spiritual practice in the context of family life, of lay life? The environment outside in society is often less conducive to cultivating a spiritual practice, because there are a lot more distractions, and you have a lot of responsibilities to your family, to your workplace, to society. There's a lot of demands, and that which takes a lot of energy from you. But if you are skillful and if you're determined, it's still possible to cultivate a spiritual practice. And again, the question that you might ask yourself is, do you want it to be a part of your life, apart from your life, or the whole of your life? An example would be some friends who wish to cultivate this spiritual practice in their life, so they make a commitment to do formal sitting every morning, for example, or every evening, so that they can have a regular practice to cultivate their mindfulness energy. So we can consider that as the practice as a part of their life. A part of their life, meaning that's one part, and then they have other things to do. And hopefully the energy that they cultivate during the sitting session can carry them throughout their day, or to let them sleep peacefully at night. But then there are those who, because of various reasons, sort of practice but compartmentalize it. Oh, I only go to retreat once a year. I'm very busy. And they might even consider the practice as something apart from their regular lives. It is something that I can go and do for 5 days or 10 days or 15 days, and then I get back to my life. And then there are those who are able to cultivate this spiritual practice throughout their day, whatever activities they're in. And we have the tools to do that, so it's up to you to choose. It's a matter of choice. The practice of breathing, of mindful breathing, if utilized skillfully, can cultivate the energy of mindfulness, can help you to discover the true nature of reality, discover impermanence, discover non-self, discover interbeing. And you can either do that with a formal practice in the morning, apart from other activities of your day, or in the evening after you come back from your full day of activities, or you can bring them in amidst your activity into your daily life, whether you're at work or at home or anywhere. So let us practice a little bit together, the breathing. Just one exercise, in and out. So please sit comfortably, find a stable position, whether you're on a chair or on a cushion. And you may choose to close your eyes or to keep them half open. Have a light smile on your face to relax your facial muscles. And bring the mind back to the present moment. Bring the mind back to your body through the attention to your breath. Breathing in, I am aware of my in-breath. Breathing out, I am aware of my out-breath. Aware of in-breath, aware of out-breath. Thank you. This is one exercise of many exercises that we can learn to practice. There's a sutra on the full awareness of breathing where the Buddha introduced 16 exercises for the breath. And if you have time, I'd like to encourage you to look into them, to find ways to bring them into your daily life. So the breath is always with us. wherever we go. So why not pay some attention to it? Why not be mindful of it? And it can do wonders. I know that in situation here we have a lot of meetings, and maybe I should include meeting as part of the spiritual practice in our community, because we meet a lot, and we sit for an hour or 2 hours. So maybe there's 8 sessions of our spiritual practice. So in the context of a meeting, when I'm able to follow my breathing, then I'm safe. I am more lucid and I'm at ease. But oftentimes I forget, and I get heated, I get passionate, I get agitated, and I raise my voice to my brothers and sisters and I argue. So at that time I know that I've lost it. I have forgotten my breath. I let my emotion take over. And I feel grateful because I have brothers and sisters who support me, not by condoning that action, but by coming back to their practice, by remaining calm, and that is about mindfulness for me. So I'm getting better at meeting. And in the past, most often I want to avoid meetings because I can't control my emotion. When there's a topic that I have passion about, I have a lot of care for, and I just lose myself. I just try to argue to win. But I think I'm getting better. And I continue to ask my brothers and sisters to help me. I remember one time, there was a time when I asked a brother who would go to a meeting with me that he would sit next to me. So if he feels that I'm about to say something, then he will just tap me on the knee or something. And I distinctly remember there was one meeting, I knew that if I came in there, I'm going to say something. And if I'm going to open my mouth, it won't be nice. But I'm determined to go, and I'm determined just to listen. But I needed help. So I asked a brother, I said, sit next to me this time, please, for real. And if you see that I starting to have body movements and I'm about to say something, just pinch me or give me some sign so that I can keep quiet, because I want to be determined. I want to be quiet in this meeting and just listen. And thankfully, he helped me, so I did just that. There's a couple of times when I about to respond to something, and then he will nudge me or knock my knee, and okay, I come back to my breathing, come back to my breath, and just breathe it through. And in the end, it was a successful meeting, and I didn't have to say anything, and I came out agreeing with everything that people share. But I knew that if I opened my mouth and share my opinion, then I would ruin it for everybody. Maybe next time I should practice that again. So that's just one example of being mindful of your breath can get you out of difficult situation, especially if you're reactive like me. Being mindful is not being full of mind. Full of mind brings the image of a mind full of thinking, of getting lost in your mind. So these are two different things. And some people might mistake being mindful for being full of mind, in a way that being youthful is full of youth, or being beautiful means full of beauty. But mindfulness, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is being aware of what's happening in you and around you. Being aware of even if there's no thinking. So it's different than the mind being full of thinking, full of thoughts, full of ideas, full of craving, etc. And we all can cultivate this energy of mindfulness in our daily life. Come back to the breath, be mindful of the breath. Come back to your steps, be mindful of your steps. These are the basic practices among other practices. And you're here for the day. I hope that you have a chance to be in touch. Come back to your breathing as often as you can. Come back to the mindful steps. And you can touch tranquility, you can touch rest, you can touch peace. And we're here all together to do that. And I know that you're here to learn that. You're here to learn a practice. You're here to grow the seed of spirituality in you. So I shared earlier that in the context of a family life, there are different ways that we can bring the spiritual practice into our lives, whether make it a part of your life, or something you do once in a while, or express spirituality in your daily activities. But in the context of the monastery, we also have those options, and it's up to us. Many of us choose to cultivate it full time, from the time we wake up to the time we go to sleep. And again, the scheduled practice facilitates that. We also, aside from the 7 or 8 sessions of practice, we also do other things. Many of us have responsibilities or tasks. And so if we choose the option of the practice as a part of our lives, then we might fall into one or the two extremes. One, and this have happened to me, one is I try to get things done so that I can go to the practice. I want to get things done so I can go to the practice. I wait to get things done so I can go to the practice. This craving involved, because I see the practice is something different, and that it's a chore that I need to complete so that I can practice. And so when I do the practice, I feel, this is my true self. But when I do the task, for example, cooking, or cleaning, or washing, or going grocery shopping, or have to sit in the office to work on registration, or working in the garden, I might see these things as apart from my practicing life, from the practice sessions. And that's okay. But I hope as we live and grow in the community, we learn to be more in the moment, we learn to be present. And that means when it's time to join the formal practice, we go. When it's time to cook, we go cook. When it's time to clean, we clean. When it's time to go to pick up someone from the train station, we go and pick up someone from the train station. When it's time to go to the airport, we go to the airport. When it's time to rest, we rest. So the schedule offers us the opportunities to be in the moment. Sometimes I find myself, if I'm doing gardening, if I was weeding or something, I try to get it done. Either quickly, or I get agitated, how come I can't finish it and I have to go to sit. So the other extreme is I'm attached to my work, and I see that is my life, and the practicing session is just interspersed. It's an interruption of my daily life. So I have to go to walking, I have to go to sitting. If you have to, then it defeats the purpose of you being here. And so one extreme is to avoid doing anything so that I can actually practice during the spiritual session. The other extreme is to hide myself in the work so I can avoid the practice because I don't find it nourishing. But a balance can be established. A balance can be established. And that is living in the moment. When it's time to go to sitting, are you able to drop everything that you were doing to go to sitting? When it's time to cook, are you able to let go of everything and just be present for cooking? So when we live in the moment, the practice becomes our whole life. Whatever we do, we're practicing because we remember our breath. So when I'm not able to be with the Sangha in the afternoon session of sitting, but I'm cooking instead, am I able to be mindful while I cook? Because if I am able, then it's no different than as I was sitting in meditation hall. In either case, I'm practicing. But if I make a distinction, cooking is not practice, or cooking is the only practice, I don't need to sit in the meditation hall, and therefore I cook all the time, or I work all the time, and that's also defeats the purpose. So the practice for us is to be in the present, to be in the moment. And so I trust that, I know that some of us have gotten there and some of us might not, but the conditions are here, the environment is here for us to experiment, to get in touch with ourselves and in touch with life. And to slowly move away from the distinction, this is practice, this is not practice. When we have the balance, then we can do our task and also at the same time participate in the Sangha's activities, and not seeing one is more important than the other, but treasure both. There is a teaching on the two truths, the ultimate truth and the historical truth, and I like to call it like aspects of realities. Like the example I gave before, when we choose a sitting session, for example, if you were at home and practicing, and you designate the morning session after you wake up is your formal practice, or the evening session before you go to sleep is your formal practice, then you are dealing with the historical aspect of reality, which means there is distinction, time to sit, time to go to work, time to eat, time to play, for example. But hopefully, as you continue to practice, you will begin to erase the the lines between them, and you can bring the energy of your sitting in the morning into your workplace, into your school, into your daily activities. Then you're touching the ultimate aspect of reality. There's no longer distinction. And that is to say, both are important. The point is not to neglect one in order to embrace the other. The point is know where we are, know where we're at, and start from there. We might start from the historical aspect. And if we practice, and if we touch life deeply, we touch that activity deeply, we will move ourselves into the ultimate aspect, the ultimate dimension, where there's no distinction, at least in our mind. Then we can move easily between the two. Recently we received an excerpt from one of our elder brothers in Thailand. He gave a talk many years ago, and it's been transcribed, and some of the monks been passing them to one another to read. And I felt so grateful having a chance to read what he wrote. And he shared about his insight in the practice of mindful breathing, cultivating mindfulness, and how even with an activity we might think as mundane as picking up trash can be an opportunity or an experience, or an opportunity to touch suchness, to touch interbeing, to touch compassion. And he shared basically that with the practice, when you do something as mundane or considered as mundane as picking up trash on the road, the activity might seem trivial. You might just pick it up because you want to be clean. You want to help the environment to be clean. But if you do it mindfully, then you might have a chance to touch the true reality is that you are with everything. You touch the impermanence nature of things, you touch the non-self, and you touch interbeing. You might think at first that, I pick up this trash because I want to do a good deed for myself. It's just to make the surrounding more neat. But with that action, which can be considered a historical aspect, but if you do it mindfully, the mundane action becomes a sacred, becomes a spiritual action. Why? Because you might have a chance to touch the reality that you are with everything. So by creating a beautiful environment around you, you're actually creating a beautiful environment in the broader sense. You water the seed of conservation. You water the seed of wanting to use less, wanting to recycle, so that less trash is present. You touch the seed of wanting to protect the earth, because you see that by protecting the earth, you're protecting yourself. And by reducing trash, you're helping the environment. And so a mundane or perceived mundane action of trash picking in the historical dimension, you touch the ultimate dimension, that you are with the environment. And so by protecting the environment, you protect yourself. And in our daily lives, there are many, many opportunities for us to touch the ultimate dimension. We just need to be creative and be open to opportunities. Let us enjoy another sound. There are many more questions, but one last one. And this question is often asked to us by lay friends who come. And that is, in this tradition, why don't you sit more? Why don't you sit more? Meaning sitting in meditation. Because in some tradition, you might sit for hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours. But when friends come to our tradition, sometimes they only see that we sit twice a day, sometimes just once a day. And we even have a lazy day when there's no sitting scheduled. And so they think, such a lazy practice, how do you get anywhere? I want to achieve liberation, but I can't just sit once a day or have a lazy day where I don't even sit. How you expect to cultivate mindfulness or concentration or insight? the Plum Village monastics and practitioners, they're just walking around, smiling and breathing. They don't do anything. They don't even sit. But I think I think that question usually came up for those who just visiting us. But I think if you lived here, you might find a different. You might find it otherwise. Of course, there are those of us who prefer just to do a lot of sitting, do a lot of formal practice, as we believe they are, just sitting and walking, and not having to cook or to clean or to cut the grass or to go shopping for the community or to answer the telephone, etc., etc., etc. But why are we here? Why do we choose this community? For me, I chose this community because I heed our teacher's call, and I share his vision. I want to support his vision in building a community where I have to learn to do everything. Our community serves as a model that the teaching of the Buddha can be applied in our daily lives. And we want to show our lay practitioner that it's possible to do the same, to bring the teachings into your daily lives, to bring a spiritual dimension into your daily lives, and that the practice of the Buddha is not just something that you do periodically, that if applied skillfully, it can bring a lot of joy, a lot of happiness into your lives, and it can give you a lot of insights. Our teachers, because he has a lot of wisdom and compassion for our modern society, that he wants to create a community in which spiritual life can be expressed in the daily activities. And that's why those of us who lived here in the monastery setting, we continue to cook, to clean, to wash, to do all the activities that you do outside. The only difference is that we try our best to bring into those activities the energy of mindfulness. And of course, as I said before, the conditions here are much more conducive than outside. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it. If you're skillful, if you're creative, you can do the same. You can bring it into your daily lives. And once you taste the fruit, you taste the joy and the happiness of the practice, you will know, and you will continue. And so when we join this community, we don't shy from doing the various things. We don't just want to walk and smile and be happy and be joyful as our image might otherwise present itself out in the world. But if you live here a long time, you know there's a lot of work to be done. But the difference is, if we know how to work, we know how to serve, we can continue to grow our spiritual life while serving, and not wait until we achieve enlightenment and then serve. So having said that, I invite you, those of you who are visiting for the day, and those of you who stay in short term, and also those of us who are here long term, the residents as well, to maybe do some reflection and see how you want your spiritual life to be, apart from, or the whole of your life. It's your choice to make. And one last thought is, wherever you are in your spiritual lives, please continue to cultivate it. If you haven't had one, start a spiritual life. Whether you are still in school, whether you are building a career, whether you're already managing a business or nurturing a family. Look into your own environment and your own conditions to water the seed of spirituality in your lives, so that you can cultivate and radiate more joy, more peace, and more love, more understanding in your daily lives and also to those around you. So thank you very much for your attention and presence. So listen to 3 sounds of the bell to end.